everyone, it's Elizabeth from Organized Chaos, and I wanted to make another video today to talk to you a little bit about the question that I get asked the most often, and that's which lesson planner format should you use for your teaching situation and your planning style. So in my store I have 6 different lesson planning formats. Each one comes in a sort of minimal color version and a full color version. So you can check out the links below to see those different formats if you're interested in seeing them up close. But today I just want to talk about specifically the format of the lesson planning pages. So within those 6 lesson planning formats, I think of them in 3 different categories. There's 2 formats that are sort of a rotational planning style, and I'll talk about more about what that means in a minute. There are 2 that are for maximum lesson planning writing space, and then there are 2 that have a little bit less space for writing but include additional space for writing notes and planning for your life events outside of school. So I'm going to show you up close those each of those 6 different formats and talk a little bit about what sorts of planning styles and teaching situations would be best suited for each of those 6 formats. Okay, so let's start with the 2 rotational styles that I mentioned a minute ago. So there are 2 different styles of, I should say, formats of lesson planner pages that allow you to plan in a rotational style. And what I mean by that is you can just write out your lesson plan for each class that you teach one time to be taught multiple times with different sections. So there are 2 formats that fit that category, and that's this one, which is called the Rotational Lesson Planner, and this one, which is called the Weekly Rotation. So the 2 most obvious reasons you would want to choose these 2, if you teach strictly on a rotation, so your school operates on an A, B, C, D, E day sort of schedule, and you see more than one section of multiple different classes a set number of times within each rotation, then this one might be the best for you, especially if you don't need to write down any date specific things, or you don't need too many date specific things. This one is perfect. You can write, you can actually fill in on your computer. You just copy and paste your class title. So you could put kindergarten, first grade, second grade. You could put beginner strings, intermediate strings, or whatever the class titles are. You can also add a line to divide up the spaces into 2 or more boxes. So for example, if you see kindergarten through second grade twice in a rotation and 3rd through 6th grade once in a rotation, then you could divide up just the K-2 boxes in half and put the 2 lessons for that rotation in that box, and then leave the rest as 1. So that's an example of how you can modify this page before you even print it. You can also use these boxes, which are not labeled, for dated things. So if you wanted to make this box over here meeting notes for staff meetings, you could do that. You could also put, this week's appointments and write down any specific events that you have during that rotation over here. But again, this is primarily based on a rotation and not based on specific dates. The other rotational planning system is this dated weekly rotation. This one gives you a little bit of space at the top with all of the dates for the school year pre-dated, and it has the month over here as well. So you can write in your doctor's appointments, your birthdays, your meal planning, whatever you want to put. You could also put school related things that happen on a specific date up here. And then down here you have the same rotational style block. This is perfect if you teach on a Monday through Friday rotation. So for example, you have multiple sections of first grade, but it's not, every A day or B day, it's every Monday or Tuesday you have a set schedule. And you can do the same edits to this one that you can on the other one by dividing the boxes, labeling the classes. You can also, in this version, increase or decrease the number of rows that you have. So you can edit this space right here and add more rows or less rows depending on how many different classes you have. This is perfect if you're on a Monday through Friday schedule, like I said, but you may also want to use this version if you're on an ABC or some other kind of rotational schedule, but you want to be able to plan more things by date. So you could put in here all of the lessons that you're going to be teaching for kindergarten during that week. And if you're going to start a new rotation during this week, you might want to divide up this box and make a note for the last lesson that you're finishing and then the new lesson that you're starting. And you also have those dates up there to help you keep on track by date. So those are the two rotational formats, the rotational and the weekly dated rotational. The next category is the one with maximized lesson planning space. If you have a lot of classes, then and you need to write more detailed lesson plans, then one of these two formats is probably your best option. There are again two formats that fit into this category. This one is dated 8 big. There are 8 boxes here plus one more box at the top. And then this is dated 5 big. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then you have a box at the top and the bottom. I have had some people who have asked me about adding even more lesson planning blocks here. Unfortunately, it would just make such skinny boxes to add even more space down here. So I've decided to leave it with the 8 as the maximum number. And then if you really want to separate the boxes, you can do that yourself in the same way that I described in the rotational formats. You can also use this top box, which I designed to be used for, again, your life events, doctor's appointments, meal planning, or staff meetings or other things like that outside of lesson planning, but you could use that for an extra class as well to give you 9 blocks. The advantage of these formats is that there's more space. The disadvantage is that you only have Monday through Friday. So if you have a lot of weekend events, or if you want to do more life planning sorts of things, including the weekend, then this may not be the best format for you. But if you only need a little bit of space for the weekend, this box over here is again not labeled, so you could either use it for general notes or you can use this space as your weekend planning space, and you can even add in the dates yourself before you print if you want, or just label it as Saturday, Sunday, and then write in your plans over here. But there is a lot more space horizontally for each lesson plan, especially in the dated 5. This space is the biggest one that you'll find in my store because there's only 5. The advantage of the 5 big is that in addition to the box at the top and the box over here on the side, which is the same here, you also have an extra box at the bottom. So actually you could kind of like I explained with the other one. You could make this 7 classes if you wanted, but you can also use this for other kinds of planning that you have, before school and after school activities, life planning, whatever you need. And you also have these boxes here in the corner, which I use. I don't use this format, but in the other format I have these boxes that I use to keep track of the rotational day, so A, B, C, D, E. You could also use it as a sort of habit tracker kind of thing with a checkbox, or there are a lot of ways that you can use this extra space here. But the dated 5 big does have this space, whereas the dated 8, because there are so many boxes, just has the straight lesson planning and one smaller box at the top of each day. So those are the maximized lesson planning formats. This is the dated 5 big and the dated 8 big. The last category is the lesson planning formats that are dated and include the weekend. And there are 2 lesson planning formats again in this category. This is dated 5, not to be confused with dated 5 big. This is the dated 5. And this is dated 6, which is literally identical, other than having 6 blocks in this space here compared to 5 blocks in this space here. So this format is perfect if you want a little more space to plan things or write things down that are outside of your lesson plans, and you like to have the dates and plan by day rather than by rotation. So the main difference between this one and the bigger blocks is the Saturday and Sunday space over here. There aren't any lesson planning blocks here, but there is space for if you have weekend festivals that you are in charge of, or just other general life planning. This is the format that I use personally, and I've been using it for 3 years now. I write in, like I said, the rotational day in these little boxes, and then I use the rest of this smaller box over here to write full day school events. So assemblies, staff meetings, dress up days, other special events that aren't like a lesson planning thing but are part of the school day. This bottom box I've used for different things. I've used it originally to plan out things that I need to prep while I'm at school, so copies I need to make, things I need to record, or other things like that down here. I'm planning this year to use it for my meal planning section so that I can notate that separately, and I know here when I look what I've planned to make for dinner that night. And then this section up here I use for life planning. I keep track of my girls' schedule, the doctor's appointments, people I need to call, blog posts I need to write, all of the stuff that's outside of lesson planning and outside of school I keep track of up here, including Saturday and Sunday. I've had people ask me before, because there are only 5 blocks here, and they're surprised that any music teacher would only teach 5 classes in a day. And I don't have that awesome of a schedule. I actually most days teach 9 or 10 classes, but the way my schedule works, many of those 9 to 10 classes are 2 of the same grade level. So I will teach 2 kindergarten classes, 2 second grade classes, or whatever it may be. So I actually will write my lesson plans for that grade level in one box. And a lot of times, obviously, I try to keep the same lesson plan for each of those 2 classes, in which case I'll just write, because I label, at our school we label our classes by the grade and then a letter. So if I had KA and KB, I would write KA/B, and then I would write the lesson plan right below that. but sometimes I am teaching 2 different lessons to those 2 different classes because they're off from each other for one reason or another. In that case, I will usually write the first lesson plan up here and then the second lesson plan below. And then whichever lesson is the one that I've taught before, earlier in the week to the other kindergarten classes, I just won't write out the full thing. I'll write a couple of sentences, a couple of little, not even sentences, bullet points so that I remember what it is. But since I've already written it before, I won't write out the full thing. That way I can put both lesson plans in the same box. The dated 6, like I said, is exactly the same. It's not too much smaller of a space for your lesson plans, but it is a little bit smaller, and then there are 6 instead of 5. I hope this gives you a better sense of which lesson planning format may be right for you. Please send me an email or find me on my blog or Facebook or Twitter or any other social media. You can leave a comment below if you want to ask me any specific questions about your situation. I love planners and I love music teachers, and I am happy to help as much as I can. Thanks for watching and see you next time. Bye!